I'm not your bitch, don't hang your shit on me.
Why don't you just deal with it?
'Cause I'm not sorry.
Would you like me better if I was?
It's human nature. It's human nature. And I'm not sorry.
I have no regrets.
I'm not your bitch, don't hang your shit on me.
Just look in the mirror.
And I'm not sorry.
I don't have to justify anything.
It's human nature. It's human
Just like you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Brain Purge. Thanks for joining me tonight on the show. I want to say hey to Grandpa Al there in the chat room. Thanks for joining me tonight, Grandpa Al. Appreciate you listening. So tonight we're talking about, as usual, whatever comes to my mind. It is Brain Purge, but I have a few things on my mind. So, that I wanted to discuss tonight. One thing is I wanted to talk, first of all, by the way, just get this out of the way. If you want to follow me, you can check me out on offlimitsshow.com, Spreaker.com, as well as on iTunes and on iHeartRadio. So you can find me at all of these places if you're interested in finding out more about me. You can also follow me on Facebook and Twitter, please, as well. By the way, if you want to call into the show tonight, you can call in by calling 214-377-0481. Or you can call in using Skype, using the name Off Limits Show. So feel free to call in if you want. So anyway, one of the things I'm talking about tonight, which I'm talking about last, but first thing I wanted to mention was that I wanted to talk about people who are unapologetic when they're obviously in the wrong. Recent events, online and offline, have made me talk about this, or in my mind want to talk about this and really thinking about it and why people are that way when they've obviously betrayed someone or hurt someone or done something wrong to someone else. So I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Before that, though, some lighter topics I wanted to discuss. One of them is the new show Looking that's on HBO. I talked about it a couple times on the show the past week or so, and actually the past month or so, and about how it's coming to HBO, and it started on Sunday. So I watched it. I watched it and it was a good show. I liked it a lot. It's a slow, what's the word? It's not a fast paced, like glitzy, glamoury type show. It's very kind of realistic and honest. And I liked that. It wasn't overly contrived or, overly, gay is for a better word to put it. So it was just really the way gay guys are. It was just guys who happen to be gay looking for love or whatever. And I like this show a lot. And the main character, who's played by Jonathan Groff, I like his personality in the show or whatever. He's got issues just like we all do. His main issue is really just kind of, what other people think about his boyfriend. He's looking for a boyfriend. He wants to be in a relationship, blah, blah, blah. He's in San Francisco and he wants to be in a relationship. And so he's looking for someone new, someone, that he can settle down with. And he goes on a couple dates or whatever. And the guy he goes on the first date with is the same kind of guy he always goes on dates with, a Princeton grad, whatever, or Princeton, Harvard, Yale, whatever, Ivy League type, Stanford type guy who's an oncologist, a doctor, and is very kind of asinine and rude to him. And so he leaves there feeling very betrayed, kind of dejected. And he gets on not the subway, but I don't think it was a subway. I think it was the bus. He gets on the bus and to go to another place to meet his friends, and this other guy's there. This guy who's hitting on him, looking at him, this cute Hispanic guy. And he's real nice, and they kind of strike up a conversation. And anyway, they get in a conversation, but he doesn't give him the time of day because he's not his typical type. And at one point in the show, he talks to Dom, who's the older guy, who would be me, I guess, the 39-year-old. I'm 38, so I'm closest to him. He asks him why he never has, his dates never work out and blah, blah, blah. And Dom tells him that he needs to stop worrying about what other people think, and especially what his family or his mother thinks about who he's dating. And I think that's good because, when I was younger and a teenager and I was single and dating and stuff, I was very much like that as well. I was very, I'd say up until my mid-20s, up until that point, I was very much aware of what other people thought about the man I was with, whomever it may have been. And I felt it was very important to me that the person that I was with reflect me in a way. They were sort of reflective of who I was. And so it was important that they be successful and they look a certain way and they be, a certain kind of personality or whatever. And so I went through that for a very long time, dating the same kind of guy over and over and over and over again. And it wasn't until I kind of opened myself up in my early 20s, I guess, early to mid 20s, that I began to really date guys that were different and began to find guys that I was really more compatible with and not worry so much about what my mom or my family or other people thought about who I was dating and just worry about what was right for me. And so it is something that I think people need to remember when they're dating someone or finding someone. It was a good lesson in the episode because it really is important that you find people that you actually click with on a real level and not a superficial one. And I think a lot of guys, especially gay guys, are highly superficial in their 20s. We as men are incredibly visual creatures, and we because we're visual and we're turned on visually, and also gay guys, generally speaking, have a sense of aesthetics as well. Art, beauty, whatever. And because of that, I think that combination makes it very difficult for a lot of gay guys in their 20s to really find something meaningful, because a lot of them are looking for more of a, someone just to kind of go home with instead of someone to actually fall in love with. And so anyway, it brought that out in the show, and I thought it was really awesome that it did, because it really is a good point. And I agree with it very much so. But anyway, the show's good. I'm looking forward to seeing the next episode. Speaking of that, though, Esquire magazine did an actual review of Looking, the show, and actually kind of was a little offensive about what they'd said, because he had said, where is it? Hold on. He said HBO has a new show called Looking about these three gay guys in San Francisco who are single and looking to hook up. Get it? People will be talking about it for a while, wherever you get coffee, in the media, and probably a lot of women too. So there are a few things you should know while you're waiting for Mad Men to start up again. He says it's a big deal because it features gay men being gay and doing whatever without resorting to stereotypes. But instead of, say, funny mincing gay guys with witty one-liners and put-downs, Looking introduces three ho-hum characters you wouldn't hang around if they were on SportsCenter. Guys hook up without fear of STDs, yet no one looks like they're having any fun. It commits the heinous sin of being gay and boring. You'll be praying for a car chase and checking your phone a lot watching this. So this is written by a heterosexual man, and the implication here of what he's saying is that gay men have to fit into a certain type of stereotype to be interesting. And, I certainly know and feel this from people I have all my life. I've never been a typical gay guy who goes out and, whatever. I've just never been that way, the stereotypical gay guy. And so this man is saying, since the show doesn't feature stereotypically gay men, that it's boring and that they're boring and that they're not really gay. So it's really offensive that this guy would write this. And I feel like, wow. So the guy is stupid enough or ignorant enough not to understand that gay people come in all shapes, sizes, forms, and types, just like heterosexuals do. Just like there are heterosexuals who are incredibly promiscuous, there are heterosexuals who aren't. They're just like there are those who are into commitment and homebodies. There are those who go out all the time and party, So it's the same way with gay people. Just because the stereotype of a gay man is one that says, oh, we have to be mincing and gay and witty and clever and dress beautifully and hot and look great all the time and thin and perfect and everything else, doesn't mean that that's the reality. Because it isn't. That's a small segment of the gay community. If you look at the gay community, you will see a vast array, plethora of different types of men. I'm talking just about gay men, obviously. But this, of course, applies to lesbians as well. You'll see gay men who are bears, who are very hairy, who are very unkempt, some of them, who have long, wiry beards and look like they haven't showered in weeks. You'll see gay guys who are very prim, proper, put together, preppy types who look like they shower 10 times a day and they dress to the nines and the latest couture. You'll see gay guys who... You'll see gay guys who are into art. You'll see gay guys who are into cars. You'll see gay guys who are into sports. You'll see gay guys who aren't. And so, I mean, it's just ridiculous for someone to peghole an entire community based on a stereotype. So I found it a bit offensive that this guy was actually, writing an article that essentially said that since these gay guys on looking didn't fit a certain stereotype, they were somehow boring, which I completely disagree with. For me, it's far more interesting to find somebody who's real than someone who's just pretending to be, or just fitting a stereotype because it's what's expected of them. So, all right, gonna come back in just a moment. We're gonna talk about my new obsession, as well as a couple of things that happened in the news recently, and then we'll talk about the apologists in just a moment after that. If you want to call in again, the number is 214-377-0481. And if you don't, you can sit back, relax, and listen to the show, and I'll be right back. So we're back with Brain Purge. Thanks for joining me tonight. That was Madonna with Sorry. So now, quickly, before I get on to the biggest topic of the night, I wanted to talk about my new obsession. My new obsession is a Porsche. I have had a BMW. I brought my BMW brand new 5 years ago, and I have it only has 30,000 miles on it. So I have really no reason to get another car. But I have recently discovered Porsches. Now, I've always known about Porsches, and I was always seen them, and I've never really been that interested in them. And the last, in my mind, Porsche I'd seen was the Porsche 911 from the 80s, and they look like tiny little flaccid penises to me when I saw them last. But my favorite car of all time is called the BMW 707, and only 1,500 of them, or 1,500, I think, of them were ever made in the world, and they were made in like 1957. They were these roadsters. They're convertible two-seater roadsters. Awesome, beautiful car. Even today, the design is fucking amazing and fabulous. I love it. And however, it's completely cost prohibitive because the cost for that car would be $250,000 to $400,000. Obviously, I cannot afford a $250,000 to $400,000 car, nor would I ever want to drive it because it would be ridiculous. But the point is that the new body style of the Porsche Boxster looks very similar to the BMW 707. Now, they're both German cars, of course, so I'm very enamored with this car. It's so beautiful. I love it, and I really want it. Now, the nicest, according to people, the nicest, or when I say the nicest, the one with the biggest engine and the fastest, speed and best torque and everything, is the Porsche 911. Now, I don't like the 911 body style, and then Porsche 911 body style, the Porsche 911 start, depending on which one you get, like $100,000 or so, somewhere in that range. Which obviously I'm not going to spend that much money on a car, but the Boxsters can start anywhere from 60 all the way, and they can go up to being the same price as a 911 if you get all the amenities on it. So our price went out the other day, and mine priced out at about $86,000, which is not that bad. So then I looked at some used ones online, and I thought maybe I could get a used one. And then the body style is okay. The older ones, but I like the newer ones better. So anyway, my point is I'm now obsessed with getting a Porsche, and I'm really extremely very, when I get my mind set on something, it's really hard for me to get it out of my head. So until I get one, I'm probably going to be like that. So I don't know when it's going to happen, but I told myself, since, I own my car, I don't have any car payments or anything. I don't need another car payment. I don't want another car payment because they suck. But it would be so nice to have that Porsche. Now, I could trade my car in and get $20,000 from it. So if it costs me $80,000 for the Porsche, I can trade my Beamer in for $20,000 and I can get it for $60,000. And so that really makes it very reasonable, which is what I paid for my BMW. So basically, we'd be paying the same thing I paid for my BMW when I got it years ago. So I think that I'm going to do that in the next, I don't know when. Maybe I won't, maybe I will. I'm trying to convince myself not to do it because I get a bug in my ass and I want it. And no comments from the Peanut Gallery about getting a new car. Like every time I send my car in for service, they give me a brand new BMW to drive, and they do that because they want you to buy a new one, right? And so every time, like, oh my God, it's always a new version of my car, or 5 Series, and I always want to buy it, and I never do. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. So anyway, I'm extremely, I don't know, I'm torn. I know this is like a high end problem, but I'm just like really, I don't know. I don't need another car. I don't want the payment, but I'm really probably going to end up doing one. So probably by the end of this year, you'll see me talking about my new Porsche Boxster, 2014 Boxster. So we'll see. Okay, next thing is Sherry Shepherd apologized. By the way, I was talking about the gay stuff, the other day about Sherry Shepherd. Sherry Shepherd had come out and said that gay people were all going to hell, regardless of how good people we are, whatever. I talked about it on my show the other day. Today on The View, she had apologized for it. It was really kind of an awkward apology, though, and she looked really awkward when she was saying it. I think she was sincere, but she said it was taken out of context, blah, 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 which I don't know if that's true or not. But I think she really did feel the way she said. I don't think that it was taken out of context. I mean, I think even if it were taken out of context, she still said gay people were going to hell regardless. So she said what she said was that gay people are going to go to hell regardless is what her religion says that. She said she didn't believe that, but she said that's what her religion says. And so I can believe that, I guess, to an extent, but I don't know. I just have a feeling she wasn't completely sincere in her apology. So if you want to see it, you can go watch the View from the day. But she seemed very uncomfortable. So the last thing I want to talk about tonight is people who refuse to apologize. Now, I've had recently some issues with people online and people in my real life, in the past of my life. And this has always been the end of friendships for me, okay? People who refuse to apologize for something that they've done that's hurt me or done me wrong or something like that, whether they see it that way or not. And for me, whenever I've had friends in the past, if I've hurt someone's feelings, if I've hurt them or I've done something wrong that made them somehow feel bad or betrayed or whatever the case may be, I was always the one to say, well, I am so sorry that what I did, made you feel that way. That was not my intention. And I won't do it again. That's me, because I don't want to hurt people. And even if it was irrational to me, didn't make sense to me, it made sense to them in their heart. So I would never continue to try to hurt someone by continuing to behave the same way I did when I knew that I hurt them. So for me, that's what it means to be a friend. And that's how I've always been with people. But, I've rarely found people who had the same sort of, value system when it comes to that. And so I was reading today about it, and I was thinking, it's not just friends. My husband, for the longest time when we met, at first refused to ever apologize for anything. He's still very difficult to get him to apologize for anything, even though he knows he's wrong, or everyone else agrees that he's wrong, or has done something wrong, or he's done something. He even knows he's wrong. He refuses to apologize. He's very, I don't know. I've always wondered, why is that? Whatever, right? Well, I was reading today on Psychology Today, which Psychology Today is, of course, a very well-respected psychological magazine, which is written by licensed psychologists, and it's written for them as well as for the public. But primarily, it's read by actual psychologists. And so this particular article, which is short, I'll read you real quick, is about this particular problem. And I was thinking, well, yeah, that pretty much makes sense. It's pretty much why I thought people who didn't want to apologize didn't. And I came to this conclusion on my own without, being a psychologist. It's just because I know human nature very well, and I'm very empathic. So I'm going to read this real quick. Why some people refuse to apologize. Hold on a second. Let me get a drink real quick. Sorry about that. Why some people refuse to apologize. Why some people find it so hard to say, I'm sorry. Written by Guy Winch, PhD. Okay. One of the first things we're taught to say as children is, I'm sorry. Yet some people refuse to apologize, even when they're clearly in the wrong. The question is why? Sorry seems to be the hardest word. Elton John wasn't kidding. Some people find it so hard to apologize that getting them to admit to even the smallest wrongdoing involves a major battle, and often a losing one. Although we might perceive the reluctance of non-apologists as simple defensiveness or pride, a far deeper psychological dynamic is often at play. Refusing to apologize often reflects efforts to protect a fragile sense of self. Apologies can vary greatly in their significance. When non-apologists bump into someone in a crowd, they might mumble a quick "I'm sorry" without giving it another thought. But the same person arguing about with their spouse about directions might yell, "I'm telling you the GPS is wrong, take a left," only to find out the GPS was correct, and then adamantly refuse to apologize, using excuses such as, "You take the wrong exit all the time too, and the GPS is wrong half the time anyway, it's not my fault." I've had the exact argument with my husband, by the way. Similarly, when our actions or inactions cause someone actual harm, real emotional distress, or significant inconvenience, most of us would quickly offer a sincere apology, both because one is deserved and because it's the best way to garner forgiveness and alleviate the guilt we feel. But here, too, non-apologists typically use excuses and denial to shirk their responsibility. Why? Why apologists are threatened to non-apologists. Why apologies are threatening to non-apologists. For non-apologists, saying "I'm sorry" carries psychological ramifications that run far deeper than the words themselves imply, as it elicits fundamental fears, either conscious or unconscious, they desperately attempt to avoid. Number one, admissions of wrongdoing are incredibly threatening for non-apologists because they have trouble separating their actions from their character. If they did something bad, they must be bad people. If they were neglectful, they must be fundamentally selfish and uncaring. If they were wrong, they must be ignorant or stupid, etc. Therefore, apologies represent a major threat to the basic sense of identity and self-esteem. Apologizing might open the door. Hold on a second. Okay. Apologizing might open the door to guilt for most of us, but for non-apologists, it can open the door to shame instead. While guilt makes us feel bad about our actions, shame makes them feel bad about themselves, who they are, which makes shame a far more toxic emotion than guilt. Number three, while most of us consider apologies as opportunities to resolve interpersonal conflict, non-apologists fear their apology will only open the floodgates to further accusations and conflict. Once they admit to one wrongdoing, surely the other person will pounce on the opportunity to pile on all of the previous offenses for which they refuse to apologize as well. Number four, non-apologists fear that by apologizing, they would assume full responsibility and relieve the other party of any culpability. For example, if arguing with their spouse, they fear an apology would exempt their spouse from taking any blame for the disagreement, despite the fact that each member of a couple has at least some responsibility in most relationship arguments. Number five, the last one, by refusing to apologize, non-apologists are trying to manage their emotions. They are often comfortable with anger, irritability, and emotional distance, and experience emotional closeness and vulnerability to be extremely threatening. They fear that lowering their guard even slightly will make their psychological defenses crumble and open the floodgates to a well of sadness and despair that will pour out of them, making them powerless to stop it. And they might be correct, too. However, they are incorrect in assuming that exhibiting these deep and pent-up emotions, as long as they get support, love, and caring when they do, which fortunately is often the case, will be traumatic and damaging. Opening up in such a way is often incredibly therapeutic and empowering for them, and it can lead them to experience far deeper emotional closeness and trust toward the other person than they had before, thereby significantly deepening their relationship satisfaction. So that's that one. There was one little paragraph from another one about this. I want to read it real quick. It says, blah, 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 blah. We find that apologies do make apologizers. Oh, where is it? Hold on. Where is it? It's something about control anyway. It's in here somewhere. If I can find it. Sorry, I'm trying to find it. Talking what's it called? Silent new light tactile with people. Anyway, it's something about the fact that the reason is that people who actually refuse to apologize, a lot of time it's about control and their need to control everything and everyone around them in order for them to feel comfortable and okay with themselves. And so anyway, those two articles really hit home with me because they really do describe many people I've known with this issue, whether they be friends or they be my husband or they be whomever it's been in my past. And so I've always had an issue with people like this because to me, for me personally, if you have done something wrong to someone else, even in the slightest, then that means that there should be an apology. I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm sorry that this action hurt you. I'm sorry that what I said hurt you. I'm sorry that what I did hurt you. I'm sorry, blah, 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 blah. I apologize. I won't do it again. And that's the other part of it. It's not just the apology. It's the other part of it, which is not doing it again. So for me, I can always accept an apology if someone means it. But if it's not something that's followed up with an action or inaction, as the case may be, whatever it is that they did or didn't do, then it doesn't really mean anything. So although apologies are nice and important, I think it's also, as I've always said, actions speak louder than words, right? So if someone has done something to you that they should apologize for, then they should never do it again. Otherwise, it's an empty apology and it didn't mean anything. And I think, for me, friendships, especially if you're going to be friends with someone, you have to respect the other person. And that's why I have, a very small handful of friends, because it's hard to find people who do that, who show you the same amount of equitable respect that you give to them. And especially on my level. And I understand that I expect a lot of my friends, but that's because I give a lot to my friends. I didn't expect more than what I give. And so when it comes to me and my friendships, it's always been that way. So the friendships I've had in the past, like I've had friendships for years, like I've had ones for 20 years of my life that I ended because the person I finally would recognize, because when I'm a little kid or whatever, you don't really recognize these patterns or in yourself or in others necessarily. And if you do, you may not want to lose the friendship, so you just look over it or whatever. But as you get older, especially in my case, I got older and realized that these people hadn't changed, and these people were exactly the same as they were when we were children. They were still extremely selfish, self-centered people who refused to apologize about anything they'd ever done wrong, were never wrong about anything, and would never say that they were wrong about anything. And what does that mean to me? It means disrespect. It means it's a lack of respect for me as their friend. As if I were to do the same to them, it would be disrespectful of me to do that to them as well. You have to have mutual respect to have a real friendship with anybody. And the only way you can have mutual respect is to treat one another with the same type of reverence and the same type of understanding. And if you put other people ahead of your friend, then you're not a friend. Like I've had friends in the past that I have known, when I was, I guess, in my 20s, I stopped talking in my 20s. His name was Ryan, and he and I stopped talking in our 20s because I stopped talking to him because I realized, first of all, he was always using me for things and whatever, and was completely self-centered and selfish. But also, beyond that, also that he was incapable of ever choosing me over anybody else when I would do that for him all the time. So if I was going to go out and do something or whatever, and he didn't have anything to do that night, whatever, he was lonely, he was depressed or sad or whatever. And like one time I had to go to a party and I could only bring one person. And I already had told another friend of mine that I would bring them, someone I didn't know as well or whatever. And I told my friend Ryan that I would bring him because he was depressed and really wanted to go and whatever else. It was going to cheer him up. I asked my other friend if it was okay, and they said they understood. But they said they were pissed off that I did that. And I don't blame them. They should have been pissed off because that was wrong of me to do. But my point is, I chose my friend over someone else that I knew because I was devoted to him as a friend. And I knew that what you invest in a friendship is what you get in returns, just like what you invest in the stock market is what you get back if you're lucky, So you've got to make an investment in people, and you've got to respect people, and you've got to get what you give, expect to get what you give, and not give less than what you get, is my opinion. So that's why a lot of my friendships end, because I don't get a reciprocal amount of respect. And so I'm at the point in my life where I'm not going to suffer fools gladly anymore. 10 years ago, this kind of things would happen with me. I would have just looked over it, let it go, whatever, and not stood up for myself and shown myself respect and had enough respect for myself to understand that when you are friends with someone, that they have to treat you with respect. Otherwise, it's not really a friendship. But yeah, I'm just at the point in my life where I'm no longer going to, I don't waste time with people who don't allow me to be who I am without repercussions because of choices that they have made. What I'm trying to say is that if someone is doing something to me and they're making choices that hurt me and harm me, and yet they're still doing them anyway when I've made it clear that it hurts me, then I'm no longer going to be their friend. Why would I? Why should I? Is my question, right? So I'm going to take a break and come back in just a minute, talk a little bit more about this, and then move on, and then we'll be done with the show and close up after that, okay? If you do want to call, the number is 214-377-0481, and I'll be right back after this.
In your arms, I feel right at home. And that's a feeling I ain't felt before. If you're feeling the same way, then let me know. 'Cause there's nothing worse than being in
sent to earth. In your eyes, I see my future. I can't be without you, so it's got to work. Goodbye's not an option, so don't say the word. Is it true that I'm not the only one? Is it true that you're just having fun with my heart? I need an answer. Is it true? Is it true? I've never been a victim of love before, so I'm not sure what I should be looking for. But I know the signs are in my face. Hope it's not too late to change. Trying to make you wanna stay. Is it true that I'm not the only one? Is it true that you're just having fun with my heart? I need an answer. True, is it true? Is it true that I'm not the only one? Is it true that you're just having fun with my heart? I need an answer. Please tell me, is it true? If you just can't tell me the truth, it wasn't real when you said I love you.
All right, so that was Brandy with True. I think it's called True. Yeah, I love that song. I just heard it. I'd never heard it before. I heard it a couple weeks ago for the first time, and I thought it was so pretty. So I wanted to play it. It had really nothing to do with the show, but I just wanted to play it. So we're back. I'm talking about apologies, non-apologies, whatever, and about, I guess, how to negotiate friendships. And that's the next thing I wanted to discuss, because I think, I'm just going to not only talk about me, I guess, for the most part, but I think that with me, friendships are, I think with anybody, actually, I guess, friendships are negotiated. I think just like when you meet someone and you're dating someone as a relationship, you negotiate how you're going to treat one another, who's going to be what to one another, whatever. And it's the same way with friendships. And so I look at it like this. If you are in a friendship with someone and they're not treating you the way that you feel you deserve to be treated, with respect or whatever the case may be, then if that's the case and the other person doesn't agree to that, and I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you like negotiate how they treat you and the other person doesn't want to adhere to your terms, so to speak, then there's really no reason to be friends anyway. Because if the two of you can't come to terms on how to treat one another, and what is considered respect, and what is considered friendship, and what is considered to be, a real connection, then if that's the case, then there's really no point in being friends, because you can't agree on the terms. It's just like if you have, you're in a court of law or something, or if you have an agreement with someone that you're writing, a contract with or whatever, if you can't agree on the terms, you can't move forward. When a war ends, you can't end the war until you've come to terms on how it's going to end. You can't move forward and how things are going to actually be from that point on. It's the same way with the friendship or relationship or anything else. So for me, it doesn't matter what someone else, whether it's now, in the past, whatever has been, if the other person doesn't concur or understand and isn't willing to understand or listen to understand or try to understand why I feel the way I do, and isn't willing to understand that and change, then there's no point in it. And just the same for me too, in reverse. If there's something they want me to do and I'm unwilling to do it, then it's the same thing. You have to both meet on terms. You have to both have to agree on how to treat one another, what it means to be friends or whatever. And the difference with me is, though, there's very little that I will not do for my friends. I am a very giving person. So if I have a friend with somebody, I'm very loyal and giving and all that good stuff. But that's probably my problem, is that I'm too giving and too forthright and too honest and too direct and all those things, and too open about who I am and myself, which is why I've said before last week or so, because of recent events, and not just online, but in my life and other things, I just have come to the conclusion that I don't want to be a fucking doormat anymore in friendships or whatever. I don't want to be somebody's, I don't know. I don't want to be there and listen to everybody else's problems and they don't ever listen to my problems. Or I don't want to be there and always be, do what's right in a friendship for someone else, and then they don't reciprocate for me. I don't want to be in a friendship with someone, won't do what I do for them, period. It just makes sense. So that's how I feel about it. And I think that's how most people will feel about it, honestly, if they're honest with themselves. And so sometimes it's just the way it has to be. Sometimes you have to just let people go out of your life, because if you hang on, you try to hang on to someone, even though it's not right, and even though they refuse to change, you're just going to make yourself miserable, because you can't force somebody else to change. You can't force somebody else to agree with you. You can't force somebody else to have a meeting of the minds, to understand you. Either they understand you, they understand where you're coming from, or they don't. And if they don't, well, I just say you're wasting your time otherwise. So when it comes to me, I'm very open and forgiving with people, but I also don't like to waste my time. I mean, that's one of the things people know about me who know me in the real world. I say that all the time. I don't like to waste my time, whether it's in conversation or whether it's in negotiations in a business contract, or whether it's in dating or whatever. I know when I was dating my husband, when we first met, after about 6 months or whatever, or I guess about 3 months, I guess. And I told him, I had this conversation with us, so look, if you're into me, great, let me know now. You want to be monogamous, whatever. If you don't, let me know, because I don't want to waste my time. I can move on and find somebody who does, or whatever, vice versa. And so, and of course he said, yeah. And so whatever. But anyway, my point is that I don't like to waste my time with things that don't hold value for me anymore. And that's why, for me, it is when I have a friendship that's not working out, if the other person's not willing to work it out, then I just rip out the weed and throw it away and I move on, because I can't sit there mired in my own regret or my own disappointment. Because if I did that, I would be constantly crying all the time and sad and depressed and lonely and suicidal, because I've had so much regret and disappointment in my life. I don't want to mire in it anymore. So I just have to move on. And that's what I intend to do. And until something changes in these situations or in other situations, like my friends in the past, by the way, for example, like I had my friend Tanya that I was friends with for 20 something years. And I'll give you an example. We had been friends since we were kids, and she'd always been very, very selfish and self-centered, whatever. But I accepted that about her. And for some reason I seem to attract people like that. And not all the friends I've had are like that. I'm just saying a great deal of them have been very self-centered people. I think because I'm a giver. And so self-centered people like people who give to them, obviously. And so they like to take advantage of that, obviously. So she was always like that, just very, very self-centered and selfish. And you try to have a conversation with her about things. Sometimes she'd just like, yeah, well, let me tell you what happened to me, that kind of person. So even though she was like that, we'd known each other since we were 9 years old, and we grew up together. We were like brother and sister. So we were very, very close. And she knew my family knew her family. We all liked each other and everything. She was like part of my own family. I mean, we even took pictures together. When we took family pictures and stuff, she was in them usually. So, what's my point? Oh, so as we got older, I was about 22 years old. She got married to this redneck, like hick guy, who hated gay people and everything else. And she had a kid and everything. And we fell out for a while. We didn't talk for a long time. We just kind of grew apart or whatever for a while. And then we got close again a few years later. We talked again. We didn't get close, but we talked on the phone. And, I had said, she was living with a new guy who was her fiance, she said. And that they had been, she was with this guy and she'd been in the Navy or something. And he had 2 kids, and then she was living with him and his kids and her kid and his ex-wife and their kid together. I was like, oh my God, that's so Jerry Springer. It was like, it was like so Jerry Springer. And I just meant, wow, that's like a really crazy Jerry Springer situation. And she's like, she got really mad at me for having said that. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't mean like that. I just was just joking because it's like a crazy situation. But she took it very personally. But I apologized to her. I said, I'm so sorry that I hurt your feelings and I didn't mean it that way, which I didn't. And I won't do it again, whatever. So we mended from there. Anyway, time went on, whatever. And then we had a falling out about something. We stopped talking later after that. Finally, she came back into my life about 5 years ago when Michael and I were already together and everything. And she came to my wedding and everything else, and we reconnected, and I met her kids and went down to her house down there where she lives and everything else. And we just had a great time together. And then, and so I went out of my way to go see her at her graduation ceremony. She was graduating from college, community college. She'd never gotten a degree, but she was graduating from there. I was very proud of her. And so my mother and Michael and myself all drove all the way down 3 hours outside of Dallas to Athens, Texas, where her school was, community college was, and all the way out to East Texas, way past East Texas, okay? And we went there for her graduation in the rain. There was a tornado warning, everything else, and they were saying you shouldn't drive, whatever. We did it anyway because we wanted to be there to support her. We were there with her mom and everybody else supporting her. So we got there. She was happy that we're there, whatever. We left. And then I was having a big birthday party a couple months later, and I invited her and I invited several of her friends. And I really wanted she and my closest friends there because it was I think it was my 35th birthday or something, or was it my 35th birthday? I think it was my 35th birthday. And I really wanted her there. So I told her about it like 2 or 3 months in advance. I said, okay, this date, we're going to do this, So please, can you please be there? I want you to be there because it'll be a fun party and I want you to be there. I want everybody to meet you and everything else. I haven't met you already. She's like, sure, I'll be there, whatever. And so as it got closer and closer and closer, finally, the night before my birthday, I had 2 events. I had the big event on a Saturday, and then I had like a private event with my mom and some family members like that on a Sunday or a Monday or something. And she said, oh, I can't make it on Saturday because I have my son has this, blah, 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 and I have to do this, I'm like, well, didn't you know that already? We've had it planned for 3 months. She's like, yeah, but I need to do this, I really have to do this, whatever. I'm sorry. I'd rather be there than here, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, I understand, I guess. Fine. And so then I said, but can you make it on the other one? She's like, yeah, I'll make it on the other one. And so the other one comes around. And she comes up with an excuse for that, not being in that one either. And then she does it 2 or 3 more times. I mean, so she kept doing it over and over again. And so I had a conversation with her. I said, look, it really hurts my feelings when you do not keep your agreements. You do not keep your promises. You promised that you would show up, and you didn't. You promised, and you knew about 3 months in advance, and there were 2 different dates we could hang out and do things together, and neither one did you make it. I said, it's not like it's a huge deal because it's just a birthday, but I still wanted you there and, whatever. I said, I'm trying to be close to you again and and it's been making it really difficult. And she just got all defensive and said, look, I have kids. I have to do this. And she's got real pissy with me, which is never a good idea. And so I said, fine. I said, we'll just not be close then. I said, you want to have a superficial friendship? Then we'll have a superficial friendship. But so for me, before I finish that story, see, that's not something I would ever do to her. We went all the way out of our ways to go, and we all had many other things we could be doing, especially me at the time. I was extremely busy with business and stuff at the time. And I made time to go out of my way in a fucking tornado and a storm and everything else to go down 3 hours out of the way, Dallas, to see her at her thing because it was important to her. I said she said it was important to her, so I'd be there. So I was there. I told her it was important that she'd be there at my birthday party. But she didn't even make it to either day. She had 2 chances to do it. She didn't make it. And then she blames me for it somehow. Somehow it's my fault, even though she's the one that didn't do it. Now, our entire friendship, she was like that from day one, from the time we were 9 years old until we were, 35 or whatever. She was always like that. She always had an excuse, and she didn't want to do something. She just made an excuse for it. So I told her, I said, look, I sent her this long, long letter and said, if you want to remain superficial friends, we'll remain superficial friends. But if you want to have a real friendship with each other, then you need to actually keep your commitments with me, and you actually need to do what you're going to say you're going to do. Because to me, that shows that you respect me as a person, you respect our friendship, and you want us to remain friends. And she, like as I said, went off on me, whatever. And so after that, we haven't talked since. And so, and so that's unfortunate, but that kind of illustrates a small way. The point I'm trying to make about this is that if you have someone where you don't agree on the terms of the friendship, then it won't work out no matter what you do. Because with us, we never, when we were kids or whatever, everything she did was fine. I let it go, whatever. So that was my fault. I let everything go. But as I grew up and became an adult and recognized that the things she was doing were very disrespectful and they were hurtful, and they didn't seem like things a good friend would do to you. And I explained these things to her. I told her how it made me feel every time she did these types of things to me. I told her how it was hurtful, yet she continued to do them anyway. So we could not come to terms on our friendship, and therefore it ended. And that's, I think, the best thing. I mean, sometimes people grow apart, and that's what we had to do. And so it's happened with her. It's happened with Ryan, because Ryan was just a different story, because he was just a user and a liar, but whatever. But, and just a complete nutcase. But I've had other friends like that. That was my point, that have happened as well. And I don't regret losing them, because I understand that sometimes people just don't belong in your life anymore. And so when it comes to people like that, I just feel that's the best thing that's supposed to be. I mean, you've got to let things go. And, if Tanya had come to me and she'd said, I'm really sorry, I should have been at your birthday party, because she said, I'm really, really sorry, I should have been at your birthday party. I had plenty of notice, I should have made, excuses. I should have just been there. You told me it was important to you. I should have made it important to me. If she'd said that to me, we would have been fine. I would have been fine, because no one's perfect. No one is perfect. People are human. It's not like she can just make one mistake and I'm no longer talking to her anymore, or Ryan or anybody else I had in my past. It's a consistent thing usually. But if she'd just come to me and apologized, then everything would have been fine. Because even if she felt she hadn't done anything wrong, she could have come to me and said, I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm sorry that your feelings were hurt, and I won't do it again. And if she had continued to do that kind of thing in the future, then our friendship would have ended anyway. But if she had said that, meant it, in the future, the same thing had not remained the same, then we would have been fine. So just another friendship example about why I think it's important to negotiate your friendship up front. And I'm not saying you have a friendship contract like Cynthia on Atlanta Housewives. Cynthia Bailey on Atlanta Housewives actually had, in her first season, she wrote a friendship contract with Nene Leakes, which everybody thought was crazy and nuts. But I got why she did it. I mean, she was kind of a joke when she did it. But the truth is, I think people should probably do that. I mean, to some degree, not necessarily have an actual written contract, but sit down and say, this is my expectations of you as a friend. Can you meet those expectations? Yes. Can you meet these expectations? Yes. Okay, we're good to go. Or if they say, no, I can't do that, I don't think that's right or whatever, well, then, maybe we shouldn't be as close as we are. And even that's another thing to look at it. Sometimes you don't have to let people go completely out of your life. Sometimes it's just a matter of letting the way things once were be morph into something else. Meaning, okay, you can't meet me on the same level of friendship that I require for us to have a truly meaningful friendship, to be, best buddy pals or whatever. So we'll just remain acquaintances, and we'll have a superficial friendship. And that's okay too. Everybody in the world can be friends. You can't be really great friends and close friends with everybody in the world. Otherwise, there's not much meaning to that, right? So everybody's not going to be a close friend, but it's fine that some people are just acquaintances. And if you understand that that's where you're at, and that's where your level of friendship can be comfortable for the both of you, then that's fine too. So I think it's, a matter of how people decide that they want to be friends with people. I think it's a level of commitment, just like it is in a relationship or to a family member or whatever the case may be. It is that, whether it's online, whether it's in real life, whether it's your family member, whether it's your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever it is, you have to make the terms known. And so that's what I wanted to say about that. Okay. Well, that's what I wanted to say tonight. I really have nothing else to say. I just had all those things to say about the things we talked about earlier on and talking about the friendship thing. But I wanted to say before I go that don't forget to listen to the show on Sunday. That's when I'm interviewing Coco Peru at 10 p.m. Central. You can listen to the show live at offlimitshow.com. or on Spreaker.com. Both places you can go into the chat room and chat with other people. And be sure, if you're interested in winning the free DVD of her movie Girls Will Be Girls, that you register on Facebook for the event by just going to the event and saying you're going. And then I will do a drawing live on the air with you people listening, and we'll see who the winner is going to be of the DVD after I interview her before or whatever. So it should be an interesting interview. She's awesome. Coco Peru is a really great, illustrious performer and a great actress, actually, as well. So and writer, too. So be sure to listen to the show on Sunday, and I hope you guys have a great night, and thanks for listening. Good night.